Conditional Release Program, a podcast that delves into the netherworld of cults, crims, and con artists. We don't like these people in the shows. We believe the best way to expose them is to hold them up to a harsh light, point our index fingers in their general direction, and mock them mercilessly, take them down a peg or two until they cease to exist in any other form than the shit on our shoes. I'm Jack the Insider, otherwise known as Peter Hoisted for tax purposes.
And I'm Joel Hill, and today we're looking at phone scammers, the time-wasting calls that annoy every single one of us. It could be the ATO scam, it could be the NBN scam, the DHL delivery scam, oh, you got a package, or any number of fucking irritating dickhead scams that go to your mobile or your landline if you still have one, and I would advise you don't. For the most of us, the calls come, and we deal with them basically immediately by hanging up on them or maybe giving them a bit of shit. Often it's a robot that says, dial one. You don't dial one.
Yeah, I do. I have a few times, yeah. Yeah, I just unload.
Yeah, but then you go on a list, it's fucked. So there are people, the elderly, the vulnerable, and those who might be a little bit gullible, maybe our QAnon friends, for one reason or another, can get grifted out of thousands of dollars. Thousands!
That's the problem. I've spoken to judges, district court judges, police officers, teachers, newspaper editors, people from all walks of life, and we all get them. Right now, I average about 3 calls per week, and I'm sure I'm not my own, and the nature of the scams are changing. For years, the scammers would merely infect landlines. Now it's mobile phones more often than not. They might not get you, but they might get your grandpa or your mum.
Yeah, see, 2 weeks ago we discussed why our crime rates across most areas were down, but scams like this are on the rise. It's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year scam business and a practice we used to find coming out of Nigeria primarily. They were quite famous for it, which is a bit sad because now Nigeria is associated with scammers. But nowadays, most is based in India. And we'll discuss why later, but it's a rotten business and it's run by criminals. This is not simple shit. As people have found out, they're not just 2-bit operations, but behavior reflective of more organized crime syndicates, the kind of people who use intimidation and violence to get what they want. And this underpins the operation of these so-called call centers. So we're going to go through the range of scams that are out there, how to deal with them, and maybe some delicious payback.
Well, I fucking hate them. Complete bastards, one and all. Fetch me my shotgun, Joel. A little frontier justice is coming on. But we can't take aim right now. Rather, I'm going to sit here coolly, methodically cleaning my gun while we take a look at what happened around the world in the Conditional Release Program's weekly news.
All right, so things are really kicking off down in Canberra, Jack. It's not good.
Well, yes, we have shock news released on Friday of a serious allegation of a sexual assault and rape made the alleged perpetrator being a cabinet minister in the current Morrison government. It's sort of unheard of political territory, and of course, there's a terrible story here that the complainant, a 49-year-old woman who was deceased in April of 2020, made allegations of a sexual assault, a rape, penetrative rape, committed on her in 1988 in Sydney, it's believed. Yeah. We're not going to identify her. We're not going to identify the alleged claim. I believe it may be known, certainly known in some quarters, but and would be known in some quarters of the meter. I don't know who it is, and I'm not going to speculate. I know people will.
Yes.
But like I said, this is untrammeled political and social history here for Australia, and we need to be very careful about our next steps. The procedural steps are that there is an ongoing police investigation. One of the circumstances is that the complainant contacted the New South Wales Police on the day before she took her life and indicated that she did not want to proceed with the complaint. That does not necessarily that move on her part did not necessarily end the complaint. It rather sort of suspends it. So it was under suspension the day afterwards she took her own life. Naturally, you would imagine a police investigation won't proceed to a prosecution because of her death. Yeah. And so this complicates things even further. Her allegations have been made to numerous people over a long period of time. They were made to Malcolm Turnbull, and they were made in person, I'm sure, to Penny Wong, Senator Penny Wong. And one thing we can say is that Penny Wong showed precisely how these things should be handled from a senior political figure in this country. And she not only supported the alleged victim in making her complaint, but provided support around that. And that's one of the things I haven't mentioned, that when that process began, after the complaint was made, it did become the subject of a task force in New South Wales that began its investigations. They interviewed the complainant in Sydney, and then were due to take a statement from her last year. COVID struck, borders were closed. She did not make that statement, and as I said, the day before she died, she contacted New South Wales Police and indicated that she wanted the investigation suspended, wanted her complaint suspended.
And, it's incredibly sad.
Incredibly sad.
Just an awful example.
And where we've got this now is that an unknown member of Cabinet, obviously male, is alleged to have committed a very, very serious offence, a very serious criminal offence, and how the government will respond. What Louise Milligan indicated, Louise Milligan has indicated that a number of friends and family, and this is indeed a part of their written submissions to Senator Hanson-Young, Senator Penny Wong and Scott Morrison, which I'm told he'd received on Thursday night, that what these people are requesting is that a judicial inquiry take place, possibly held by, possibly conducted by High Court judges, either retired or current, to basically sift through the evidence and make some sort of finding.
Yeah,
it's a difficult thing because this is a criminal matter, but it's a criminal matter that's not likely to go anywhere. And of course, we do have the issue of one of the most senior political figures in this country, whoever that person may be, in a position of power with these very serious allegations hanging over them.
Yeah.
How long that person's identity holds is just unknown too. Will it be subject to a media leak? One suspects it can't go on forever without people knowing. And so it has all sorts of complications there, and it leaves certainly that the alleged perpetrators' colleagues in a very difficult position too.
I hope none of them are getting any fucking sleep.
Well, yeah, look, it's a very complicated problem, a very difficult problem, that because we live in a society where we have the separation of powers, politics and law enforcement don't and shouldn't overlap. And so, firstly, we have a police investigation on suspects that is only in existence really to provide further evidence to a coronial hearing in South Australia. The coronial hearing will determine basically the circumstances around the complainant's death.
Yeah,
this 49-year-old woman, and make some finding. Coronial inquests are not especially helpful in these matters. For a start, they can't compel people to give evidence, and even if people do give evidence, they aren't required, unlike our legal system, they aren't required to give evidence that might incriminate them.
So the judicial inquiry is the way to go.
It's likely not to lead to very much at all. I mean, I don't want to interrupt things, and I think that's part of the problem here, that there's going to be some sort of, certainly on social media, some wild speculation.
Yep, there already is on Twitter. Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. And some of it, like, quite plausible, which is a bit interesting.
Well, unfortunately, an event like this is going to give rise to some fairly outrageous sorts of conspiracy theories and one or two other things. It's really, as I say, just an environment that we've never really got into in this country. I guess the only sort of roadmap we have were the allegations made of historic sexual assault made against then Labor leader Bill Shorten, and what we do know about that is that Shorten cooperated with that process, and the police determined that he had no charges to answer. The difference here is that we don't know who that person is, and whether we have a right to know it or not. That's going to be endlessly debated in our community. It's a very, very unusual situation and
a fragile one.
Yeah, extremely, and it just needs to be dealt with super sensitivity by all the media, and when we sort of look at that, we're going to have to wonder about whether that's going to happen or not. We really are on untested ground here, and it's going to be a situation that needs to be dealt with very sensitively. In other alleged crimes, Joel, Trump supporters wanted to blow up Capitol building, it is alleged, which I guess, I mean, they've gone in there, they've smashed the place up. Now they figure, well, look, we might as well blow it up.
Yeah, it does feel like alleged is giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I guess that's the way our system works, for better or for worse. The acting chief of the Capitol Hill Police, who replaced the utterly useless tool that came before her, Jurgen Pittman, has got a Parler account and is finally paying attention to the intelligence that surrounds lunatic threats, because they're usually quite credible. Better late than never, I guess. Sort of. The same idiots who stormed the Capitol, the ones that weren't arrested and jailed at least, are chattering about trying to blow up Congress and kill the members inside it. Oh, that's not very nice. Very nice. The non-violent QAnon is continuing to be non-violent.
A little bit violent. On the fringes. Of the QAnon movement, there's a little bit of violence and just a little bit of terrorism.
Just a tiny bit of terrorism, just blowing up
Jesus,
Congress
we
people.
shouldn't be laughing because it's a huge threat. It's
terrifyingly fucking plausible. But if you don't laugh, you cry, I suppose. So that's it. And the thing that I find funny is that I don't know how they would blame this on Antifa, but we know they'd try.
Oh, they're going to have a crack, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, I saw them. They were all gays. So this ridiculous terror attack plan was meant to wipe out the building while Biden delivered his State of the Union speech, which has been scheduled to an unknown date. Now, this backs up conspiracy theory that he's not president because the president delivers the State of the Union speech. He's not the president. It's just like candy to these fucking idiots. But it's likely a response to an absolutely terrifying and quite real threat of terrorism at the fucking event. That's a really good reason to postpone this, as opposed to he's on a movie set. So in response to this weird internet-fueled bloodlust, there's about 5,000 troops of the National Guard staying, probably sleeping fairly rough in DC until mid-March. Now, this is also partly due to the fact that the National Guard is fully aware of the ridiculous idea that Trump will be inaugurated on March 4th, and that Biden is not actually president. Now, I never imagined personally that sovereign citizen bullshit would blow up to this level of crazy where the fucking military was involved. They usually just mouth off to cops at a traffic stop and get tased for their troubles, and I watch it on YouTube because they record themselves. They think they're in the right... Look them up. They're great.
They're your funny soft sits,
They really are good. But these are scary soft sits. They're the ones that, shoot cops. Yeah. And this time, they're planning to storm the Capitol again because the first time obviously went so fucking well. And somehow, this is going to help Trump become president again because, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, what?
Look, I've seen people, including some of our friends, the Betfair lunatics, saying that March 28 is another key date. QAnon and modern conspiracy theorists basically rely on shifting goalposts to perpetuate their incredibly misguided failed predictions. Basically push them back onto the calendar to something that still works.
Didn't happen. Oh, it's just give it a couple of weeks, bro.
It's been a short delay.
I reckon a few anons might hold on those extra weeks to find out if Trump, their fucking man, does get up. But he won't, obviously. This is just like delusional bullshit. And one by one, they will lose hope. Well, I fucking hope so. Look, they will, I'd say, I'm on the record, give up on the Great Awakening and possibly send a meek text message to their families. Hey, guys, it's me. Yeah, me again. I realize now that all that QAnon stuff was actually bullshit, and I'd love to see you and the kids sometime. Just give us a call. I'll buy you ice cream.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And in other news from the United States, the GOP CPAC has got together in Orlando, Florida, and special guest Donald Trump will address the throng tomorrow, Monday. That is Australian time.
Yeah.
But the star of the CPAC so far has been a gold Donald Trump, a bronzed, one suspects, and then painted with gold paint. Cheap and nasty.
And spray tan.
Yeah, but it's a bit of gold, bit of a 24-carat spray tan.
Yeah, that's the one.
Has been the star of the CPAC. And really, you just have to wonder, these people, these conservative CPACers, most of them are Bible bashers, right? Most of them are thumping that thing 24/7. And they seem to have forgotten the chapter in Judges about graven images, because there's a story there of the Israelites. While Moses is up on Mount Sinai talking to God, the Israelites are getting a bit cranky. And they decide that they're a bit perplexed by their invisible God, capital G God, and they would like to start worshipping a small G God. So they hand over all their jewelry, they smelt it down into a golden calf, and they start worshipping that. And this makes Old Testament God angry, very angry.
Yes,
Old
famously
Testament God,
angry.
very short-tempered and big on the smite when there's trouble, when there's, if you want to doubt my omnipotence, have this backhander and wipe out an entire society. So basically this lesson from the Bible that these people all believe in, and Donald Trump, sections he loves it. New Testament, Old Testament, they're both as good as each other, apparently. But in the Old Testament, this says, please don't. God says, if you do this, I will fucking smite you. So, that's been a hugely funny instance from the CPAC, the graven image of Donald Trump.
As someone who tends to veer toward the somewhat riskier side of Pascal's wager, I don't necessarily believe in a lot of things. And if there was a second coming, I'd be, how about the take-backs? But if that resulted in CPAC being drowned in locusts and lava because they were worshipping a false idol, I tell you what, it'd be worth it. It would be fucking worth it. I will spend eternity in hell just to watch these fucking idiots find that the second coming of Christ is not a meat carpenter, but actually a thunder-throwing motherfucker who says, excuse me. Look, I'm just going to put it out there. If Donald Trump was wearing a What Would Jesus Do bracelet during his presidency, a lot of things wouldn't have happened. So
it's just like the old Robin Williams line, when Jesus comes back, he's not going to be a carpenter, he's going to be a sheet metal worker, he's going to be pissed off.
Fucking A. Absolutely.
I want the founder of QAnon right here, right fucking now. So he's going to get a smiting. He's got for a smiting.
And he knows who it is.
Yeah.
That'd be the best part of the second coming, finding out who Q is. But it's just Ron Watkins anyway, so who fucking cares?
What we do know is the GOP hasn't read all of the Bible. Now,
no.
In our favourite lawsuits, Joel, the Dominion and Smartmatic lawsuits, what are the advances there? What do you got for us?
Look, at this point, the law is operating fairly slowly, so it's not as funny as it has been before. But the latest development, as we said, in this, post-POTUS lawsuit frenzy, is that Mike Lindell has been served. So you can stop speculating, not that you were, but the MyPillow guy, worth approximately $300 million, is now on the hook for about 4 times his net worth.
Yeah, now, it's got to hurt. It's got to be a worry. You're going to lose sleep over that.
And it's funny because he's going to lose sleep, ironically, with really good pillows.
Really nice.
What a shame.
Really nice pillows, yeah.
What a shame. So he's going to have to sell a lot of pillows to make up the gap in this award, but he's shamelessly used promo codes on his website like QAnon to provide discounts to pilled lunatics. And we can be assured that he's going to distance himself from that whole... I never believed it. He's always going to make this bullshit claim that he was never a part of QAnon.
I just love the fact that, if you pop in the QAnon, you get, 10, 20, 30%.
I think it was like 30%.
30% off.
Discount.
Look, it does make me wonder, would I become a QAnon cultist if I could save 30% off on Quality Manchester? I got to tell you, Joe, I got to think about that. I'm going to have to think about that.
It's pretty tempting. And as far as I know, as much as I hate the My Pillow guy, apparently the pillows are pretty good. Look,
I simply must sleep between Egyptian cotton, and so look, if I get 30% off that, I'm thinking about hitting the tunnels and trying to rescue some stolen kiddies.
Stolen kids in surprisingly good Manchester. Yeah, I've sold that for much less. Pepsi, the taste of a new generation. Let's fucking do this. So essentially, we know this is going to fail, and he's going to wind up with a judgment against him because it's an open and shut case. The guy made a fucking 2-hour film incriminating himself. What do you think?
And we all know what it's based on too. I mean, presumably this is based on absolute truth.
He's given absolute proof that he's fucking guilty. Yeah. It's amazing. Just basically hearing that someone's going to sue you and saying, look, I know it's a lot of work to set up briefs, so I'm just going to give you like a video form to do it for you. Thanks. What a fucking idiot. Anyway, in other Dominion news, Dominion are running ads on conservative radio in Louisiana. They're trying to win back some hearts and minds with this plucky piece of advertising describing how they're essential to democracy in the very red state. Trump got more votes in 2020 than 2016, all the bullshit. I'm not convinced, though, that this is going to work, and I'm not convinced that it's meant to. This is a bit of a blue anon fucking me being red-pilled again. So. Yeah. But this feels way more like a play to get the judge to see the damage that Lindell, Giuliani, and Powell have inflicted upon the business. Yeah. Running these ads and then seeing there's no shift in public confidence. So while confidence in voting machines in red states has to be almost non-existent after their fucking big dog Trump has blasted them out of the water over the period of about 4 months... the only thing they really can do is try and promote their side of the story. And to be honest, you'd be sending it to the people who are least likely to believe it. Because what they will do, and this is me being pilled again, is run these ads alongside some focus groups, make a file, and provide evidence for their case against the 3 defendants, the 3 musketeers, the 3 fuckteers, to maximize the damages awarded. And it's looking like a very rough time is coming up.
It's not looking good.
They're going to have a very, very bad time. I would not want to... No.
There might be a few more couches we're going to have to drag out on to.
Yes, eBay will take 10% of everything.
Yeah, look, we will remove your couches from your homes. Look, in other news, and it's American political news again, hasn't been busy over there. Mitch McConnell, the Trump weather vane, he's just spun. He was on the Trumpster for a very long time. They were inseparable. And then he spectacularly clambered down off the Trumpster, clambered down off his shoulder. Yep. And now he's back. He's
clambered back up.
Sitting back next to the Trumpster on his shoulder there.
Good on you, Mitch. Wanker.
Mitch McConnell, who's no longer the Senate Majority Leader, of course.
No, you need a majority for that, and thank Christ they don't have one.
Senate's Minority Leader now.
Yes, exactly. What does he know about fucking minorities? Let's face it. So after lefties gave Turtle Man a golf clap for announcing Trump for the Capitol Hill riot, he's done an impressive backflip. Not his nature. He's not much of a gymnast. To declare heck yes, he would back Trump.
You've actually got to take your head off. Degree of difficulty 6.5. I'm thinking about giving a 9.8 on the backflip here
with handicap.
Because he was basically suggesting Trump should be charged with criminal offences a couple of weeks ago. He's now saying, look, I think he's our man. I think he's our man in 2024.
It's absolutely fucking cooked. And it must be said that he was saying he would back him if he were the candidate. So while someone of his rank in the party kind of has to support the nominee regardless of who it is,
it was a bit of a
blind party faith. This is not sending a good message, especially not now. So as you can imagine, Trumpers across the board are ready for his run in 2024 backed by the establishment, which is so fucking annoying because we did not need this. This is, of course, accepting the ones who think he's going to be inaugurated in March. They're fucking idiots.
Well,
there's quite a few of them. It's quite terrifying. So the stink of Trump is not gone.
No. You can smell it. You can smell it. The stench is still there. Yeah.
Oh, the swamp is just letting off so much methane right now. I can feel it getting warmer in this room. It's that or this beating sun that's coming through my window.
Look, and the longer he's around that party, the more likely it is to split, schism, and splinter, and just produce the absolute glamour conditions for the Democrats to be elected for the next 20, 30 years. You know, that's
the next thing they'll probably run like just a shoe with a Raytheon sticker on it, and it'll win by like a landslide. Like just embarrassing.
The very idea of Ted Cruz being in the mix in 2024 is just bizarre. How good is
his haircut? He's going to fucking roll us at a service station before he gets a fucking presidency. Bro, give us your phone and wallet.
He just needs, he does need these speed dealers' sunglasses, doesn't he, that you can buy from a service station. You know, usually
after taking my fucking
bright
body.
Green frames and the blue mirrors and pop them on. And he would look like a meth dealer. Yeah.
Look, to be fair, you know, crackheads aren't new to politics. The Toronto mayor was one. That's a whole other story. God, we should cover that one day. That was such a bizarre experience.
I miss him.
Yeah. Oh, God, yes. Well, you know, speaking of very annoying, old Craig Kelly resigns from the Liberal Party and has a casual chat with Barnaby Joyce.
Yeah, they're seen together in their offices earlier, or in Craig's office earlier. You know, there's a great media minds. Basically,
great media
minds. If you or I were sitting there, Joel, you'd know the average, once Kelly and Barnaby walked into the room, the average IQ has taken a serious hit.
I'd say the books on the shelf probably keep it around a good spot.
You're barely hitting. It depends on what the temperature's set to. If it's set to about 23, you know, I might find it lagging. But yes, Craig's just split. He's gone. He's on the crossbenches now.
Yep, that's the one. See, after copping a little bit of shit for being a peeled lunatic, furniture salesman and the temporary member for Hughes, Craig Kelly, Hughes, Craig Kelly has resigned from the Liberal Party. And on face value, it seems like he is quitting the party to join the crossbench in order to maintain his ability to shitpost on Facebook.
And he wants to keep doing that.
Amazing. What would you do? So this is, of course, putting a lot of weight and confidence behind the idea that they won't ban him for his shaky medical claims and generally shit takes on science. It's a peer-reviewed preprint. It's the special kind.
Yeah.
Champ. Thanks, mate. So after resigning from the party, Craig was seen having a chat with Barnaby, and this sparked rumours, mostly on Twitter, that they might be seeking to make a new party, which Barnaby was the leader of. And since then, it appears the chat was actually about Kelly joining the Nationals, because Barnaby just loves being leader of anything. I think he'd probably be the leader of the fucking Australian Nazis.
Well, they might go back to the old days of calling the Country Party. And you just have to abbreviate that straight away, wouldn't you?
Yes.
The Country Party, the Australian Country Party. And
the Australian Cunt Party. But
well, you had to say that. I mean, you just talk about the abbreviation and
it was implied. Enough. This is apparently a cynical act by Barnabas to take back the old leadership.
No, it didn't happen. None of it happened. I mean, the meeting happened, but Barnaby, look, and by the way, colour television was invented for Barnaby Joyce, wasn't it? I mean, so that we might see him better. We might see him as he is in the wild.
He's famous. There's
so many shades of red and pink and purple on that face.
Yep.
Really, it is just one of those. When you see him, you just go, "Thank God we have colour television technology now."
The Pantone colour chart goes off the fucking Richter. Good Lord, what a disgrace! Imagine trying to paint him
colour to a photograph,
putting all those fucking red spots in. That would be very difficult. I mean, that's an Archibald you don't want to have to do, but. Essentially, Kelly's probably not joining the Nationals.
No.
I mean, it's all just speculation. But he says he's going to run as an independent in the next election. And I love this. Yeah, this is a campaign that is doomed to fail.
Well, look, if you're in as an independent in Hughes, I'll come straight out and say it. I don't reckon he'd get 5,000 votes. I mean, he might play a bit of a factor in terms of how how preferences are counted, and it might deliver the seat to Labor. I mean, really, it is a swing seat. I mean, Labor should be looking at chunks of bloody Liverpool in there.
Yeah.
But look, so I don't think he's going to run there. Well, my tip is he's going to stick himself up in the Senate. He might have a crack on it. He might go and become a Senate candidate. Now, it's very difficult to win that as an independent. So would he align himself with another party? I guess that's the question. I can't see him go number 2 on the Senate ticket for the Great Australian Party.
Which maybe is the option.
You have to feel a man of Craig Kelly's significant experience
and stature.
You'd have to say he'd be a little bit pissed off to find himself number 2 on the ticket behind Paleo Pete. So I probably won't be that one. Don't think it'll be the Greens. Can't see it being there. No. Can't be Liberal. Can't be Labor. No. So there's only a few more that he can run. But yes, look, if he has a crack in Hughes, that's the end of him.
Yeah, he's fucked. And the thing that I really like about this is that it seems like Kelly's decided quite officially and quite publicly that shit posting is a much more important role in Australian politics than being a member of the government.
It's something he's good at it. Probably the first thing he's been good at in his life. He's bloody good selling furniture. Wholesaling
and shit posting is an art.
Shall we say? Yeah.
He does pretty well. He gets more fucking likes than I do.
He likes it. And if he likes it, I think he should be able to do it.
That's right. I think so. So basically, I don't think this is exactly a bad move as such, but I do think he's going to live to regret it because his allegiance to hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, has garnered him this very temporary loving support from Pete Evans' followers. And we all know their attention span is measured in milliseconds, and they're not going to stick around long enough for him to get up again. We just fucking know that.
Well, what I will tell you right here and now, Craig Kelly will not have head lice. I'll absolutely guarantee you he doesn't have head lice. He's on the ivermectin, and that's getting rid of. He's scrubbing that into his scalp. There's no head lice on Craig. And now we have to move on to one of our regular segments. It's a segment that has really got to the point now where we need to put a pillow over its head and fire 2 into the back of its brain. Take the brain stem out and just kill it off once and for all. It's the Betfair Trump Punters Fraud Expose Group.
Now, Jack, I hope the pillow we use to execute this segment is a MyPillow.
MyPillow.
The promo code QAnon will get you 30% off. Well, I love a bargain. Yeah. Only $160.
I'm John,
look,
just to get those sheets. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
It's getting sad on the Facebook pages. There's a few solid holdouts there posting wild conspiracies as usual, but these are the usual things. You'd be used to them by now. It's the Castle Rock movie set thing, the March inauguration thing. We'll be yakking about it all fucking episode because it's the only thing that's really going on at the moment. The conspiracy circle is just getting weird, sad, and tiring. It's kind of like watching a rerun of an old television show that you never really liked in the first place.
It wasn't good in the first place.
It didn't age well, but it didn't start well. It just always sucked. But the hope is still strong, surprisingly. And while numbers have shrunk, the barnacles are bonded because they still think they're getting their money. And it's on the way. It's just a matter of time. There's lots of banter how it's going to play out, but it's not fun banter. It's just pointless arguments about things that are just obviously made up bullshit. Like, as they say with the advent of the iPhone, the library of Alexandria in our pockets, but we use it to bicker about what version of completely made up sovereign citizen bullshit is more believable.
Yeah, look, we'll keep an eye on that. Personally, I'd like to kill it off. I'd like to give it 10 to run away and then just start blasting and bring it down first. Bring it down first with a shotgun and then pop around with a 45
it's like a TAB section of a shit pub. It's just a few rusted on fuckers who are holding on
to be honest, I didn't even look at them this week. I look at them religiously, but I've got sick of their shit,
Yeah.
But now, Joel, it's time to stick on the face mask and breathe deeply from an aqualung. Take the plunge and go down deep, deeper than anyone has ever gone. So deep the pressure would crush lesser humans. Trying to make sense of the world. It's time for a deeper dive. Now, we all get these things, we might be just walking out the door or engaged in a bit of work, and all of a sudden the phone rings and it's a scam call. They don't come in as private numbers. They're always listed numbers, sometimes landline numbers, sometimes mobile phone numbers. And when we pick up that phone, we hear the spiel. And it's usually a robotic voice telling us that the NBN is about to collapse and die and fall out of its own arsehole and we'll need to pony up with some dough. in order to keep that rolling. It might be the ATO scam, Joel, where I've had that many times where your warrants have been issued for your arrest.
Services Australia, whatever the fuck that
one
is.
just recently, Services Australia. Guys, do some fucking research. There's no such fucking thing. You're confused with our state government in New South Wales, you fucking idiots. So that one's not going to pass muster. But there's a whole lot of them. And there's the parcel scam, the DHL, sometimes called the DHL scam, and a parcel has been sent to you. It's very close to the refund scam. That we've actually given you something that we didn't mean to give you, and we'd like to give you that money back. I
know somebody got done that recently.
This all leads to they want to actually access your computer. They actually want to access the device that you're using, and they want to be able to have a good rummage around your
files, get you to buy them gift cards,
look through your password files, and obtain your banking details that way. And then once they've got that, and these calls can take literally hours for people to be online, then they lose their money. Absolutely.
Pain in the ass.
I noticed this week I was getting cold calls, direct to call centres in India, and they tend to be Indian. And there's reasons for that. We don't want to sound like we're a bunch of racists. There are other groups in the Ukraine, the Nigerian are still engaged in their scams. They're not as weak as the old email scams.
Well, there's a crackdown in Nigeria that sort of really, tapered this off, I believe.
Yeah, look, there are other parts of Eastern Europe. But the reason why the Indian call centres are so prolific is that the Indians themselves have a proficiency in English language.
Burgeoning middle class.
Burgeoning middle class, of course, and they've got sort of aspiring people amongst them who want to make a quid by whatever means. Yeah. And also they are technically proficient. So when we're talking about Indians, we're not talking about Southern Asians. There's no scams that I'm aware of coming from Pakistan, none from Bangladesh that I know of, and none from Sri Lanka. But it is prolific in India, where a lot of people are making a lot of dough. They're making literally millions of dollars a year from these scams. And so, look, I've written about it a number of times now, and in one case, I put it to my readers, how do you deal with this? I suggested a few things and a few ripe conversations. Sometimes, if I've got a few minutes, I'll press the one and proceed to give this person a lecture on the criminal justice system in Australia and how they would fall foul of it, and how what their mothers would think.
I think that's the best line. What does your mother think?
What would your mother think if she found out you were doing this sort of stuff? You're a fucking fool unto yourself and a fucking disgrace to your friends.
It's very scummy behaviour.
That sort of lecture. Others had some great ideas. One bloke used to put the phone down and say, "Look, I've just got something on the stove.
Yes,
I'll just be a moment," and then just leave them. Leave them hanging there, and then pop back periodically to see if they're still there. He said he got up to 14 minutes on one occasion, which is a pretty fair effort.
It's not bad.
Singularly, I suppose, in some very small way, is locking up their system. So I thought that was a pretty good go. Yeah. Joel, you've had a fair bit to do with it because you're kind of sort of in the business, not of scamming, that is, but you are an IT dude.
I know a lot of people around this sort of thing who've been scammed, and the stories are pretty tragic. It's basically, I know my way around a computer, so people will call me and ask me, what do I do? And it's a very sad situation because, of course, first and foremost is the fact they've been fleeced. Now, depending on how much they've been fleeced is depending on how high this is in the priority list. One person that I know had a place in Sydney that they were living in, and they needed roof repairs. Their roof was leaking like crazy, and they had just saved up enough money to get it fixed, and they got scammed for that amount of money. It was about $31,000.
$31,000. What was the scam over?
Basically, that was a phone scam that went to her logging into her internet banking while the scammer was on the line and using the old trick of changing the figures on the screen to look like there's a refund.
So basically, changing HTML to alter the text on the screen.
Yeah, and that's a very effective way
play with the person's bank balance that way. So that way they can show them, oh look, we've refunded the money, whereas they haven't. They've actually just basically frozen the site, changed the HTML. And then they say, now we've sent you too much money. That's often so that's a refund scam.
Yeah, that was the last one I came across as well. Same sort of thing.
And now
refund
you've got
scam.
now you've got to send us some.
Now you got to send it back, and they do.
And they do, and it works. It works a lot of time. I know people. I know many of our listeners who go, so how could you get involved in something like this? We talked about it at the front of the show. Often elderly people are their targets, often vulnerable people for one reason or another.
Yep. And just kind people too, who don't question people's motives.
And there is always, more significantly, particularly people in a certain age group, older people.
Yeah.
Really, there's a big disconnect between their understanding of the computer and their actual use of it.
And they've got savings, and that's why they're so perfect to fleece because they do tend to have savings, And this person, her savings, this was rough because this was going to do a bloody roof. The other person I know who got done for $20,000 recently, this is in the last fortnight.
Wow.
She got done by the refund thing on a tech support basis. She got done for the tech support thing, and then she got followed up by them. So it was this thing of she paid them the money, then they came back for more, and they got $20,000 out of her. The police are involved, but and it was like that. She's looking down the barrel of sort of mild financial ruin, but at the same time, it was that humiliation that just didn't seem to shake. She just felt absolutely taken.
Yeah, when we say, these are people that, because of your work, you would come across more of these people than we sort of hear from, if you know what I mean. Because the thing about scammers, all fraudsters, is that their marks, the people they've successfully levered money out of, are often not likely to go to law enforcement because they're so embarrassed about what's happened.
I've had a lot of people who haven't, but usually for smaller amounts of money. The antivirus money.
That's probably a decent proviso. So a lot of people who just drop a grand cold don't report it because they're so ashamed of themselves.
When you get past 10, they tend to go, they contact the bank and that sort of stuff. Everyone tends to cancel their credit cards, whether it's justified or not, because a lot of these places that do these sort of scams, they want a one-off payment and they want it for antivirus. Obviously, there's no fucking virus, but they say there is. They say they'll load antivirus on there. Some of them, I think, actually do load pirate versions of Norton and shit. But either way, it's about $400 to get this bullshit antivirus suite.
If you get to that point where you've paid for something, this is a software scam, the virus scam.
Yeah,
they will go into your machine and they will change it. They'll often change it for the worse. So it's not as if you're getting something that's mildly inferior. It's going to be terrible. I guess the first lesson is don't let anyone. And I know a lot of our listeners will be techs and they sort of laugh at the suggestion anyway, but don't let anyone under any circumstances access your computer. Now, Joel does that to me every now and then, and I fucking
You'd have
hate
to find me first.
But he knows I'd kill him if he ever did anything about it. But he's the only one. Well, I also trust Joel. But any person who wants to come in and access your computer that has just rung you up cold, or he does not have your best interest at heart. And I know we probably don't even need to say that, but these things are still stunningly successful. My mother, and I always wondered whether they access the electoral roll so they get date of birth, and those sorts of things as well. Probably not, but once they get, once they understand that they've got an elderly woman in the house, she was just copying so many calls. And they came up with, her and her husband, they came up with their own sort of response, which is pretty good. And his one was just, look, if you've got something you want to talk to us about, put it in writing. And then he just hangs up. Sometimes he's going to hang up.
Yeah. We'll speak then.
But that's still good advice. Put your shit in writing. But look, so clearly there is some sort of way in which this sort of circulates. So if you fall prey to one, or even if you've listened and responded, sort of in some sort of way that makes them think that you might be on the line next time, it's just that they're like fucking, rats leaving the ship. They just fucking swarm all over.
This last person I was talking about, she was getting follow-up calls on a very regular, like hourly basis of them saying, we're not done yet, we're not done yet. We're not finished yet. We're not finished yet. She's like, just leave me alone. Like, they took her for 20 grand.
I know. And they're looking for more. And that's a fatigue factor as well. So when I say, these calls are not going to be over quickly. If they've got someone on the hook, the calls can take 6 to 8 hours, before they've milked someone.
That's fucking crazy.
And that fatigue element simply comes in. And I pointed out to you, Joel, a while back when we talked about making this program of the existence of Jim Browning, which is an alias. He's a Northern Irish software manufacturer or software designer. Yeah,
engineer, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's worth a click.
He's got a number of Jim Browning. He's got a number of YouTube clips that are fascinating viewing. As we discussed before, he was motivated firstly by, I believe, a family member being conned, and so he decided to basically attack the predator, go the predator.
This is an extension of the old 419 EATer website, which started this sort of general trend of like having one on with the scammers. But 419 EATer was basically dragging these scammers along, and these were more email scams and a lot more basic. They weren't quite as sophisticated as the ones they are now, and most of them were from Nigeria. And what they would do, and this was a lot to do with the Something Awful image board, which is a precursor to 4chan, where a lot of pranks originated. And they'd get these people to basically hold up ridiculous signs. They put shoes and things on their head. They put fish on their heads, milk bottles, like all sorts of really dumb things. Basically saying to the scammer, I want you to prove that you're real. I need to see you doing this. And the scammer, absolutely seduced by the idea of getting this money, will go along with it. And of course, they'll come up empty-handed. So these sort of pranks sort of originated in this, like, sort of put a shoe on your head, you fucking moron, I'm posting this to the internet. Yes. But then Jim Browning took it to a whole new level. We talked about it before,
that basically what these scammers want is access to your computer. And he talks about it without showing what he does, but at that moment where that computer becomes shared, he can enter into their computers and start moving around, start looking around, accessing the workplace, the scammer workplace CCTV. So actually watching them.
I'd love to know how that works.
There's a beautiful moment where he's being scammed by a guy. He's so bored with the sales pitch that he's delivered so many times. Basically, he'd gone on to play Pac-Man. And Browning was watching him while he's delivering this bill. Oh, yes, but we need to clean up the computer, sir. And then while he's playing Pac-Man, Browning said, stop playing Pac-Man. And the guy nearly shit himself. So Browning has this great don't get mad, get even philosophy. And he's been able to, he rolled one big call centre in Bali. In Delhi, one big call centre in Delhi, with the assistance of the Panorama program, the BBC version of
BBC Panorama, My friend Richard Butchins does some good stuff for them.
But he's done all the hard work, and it led to prosecutions. One thing Browning says is that he provides a lot of information to Indian law enforcement, and it doesn't get followed up. That these things are sort of more or less tolerated at a sort of mid-level. Yes, and like I say, so the fact that there are so many of them in India, and Delhi is one of the main centres. The other one is Kolkata, but they're spread around India all over the place. It's because Indian people, young Indian people, speak English as a second language quite comfortably, or a third or fourth language quite comfortably, are computer proficient, and are in the game too, because, there's this blitz of consumerism in India at the moment. They need to, they've just been put on a great big wheel and they've got to pedal.
Often these jobs are listed as legitimate call centre jobs.
And often that's their introduction to it.
And they don't know.
And they'll be, basically handpicked. And
then they get brought up into it.
The mob. So the one that got knocked off in Delhi, the front foot was a tourist or travel agency. And then when you went back into the building, there were these call centres that were constantly scamming people.
And they do have to hide, but they hide in plain sight. There's not enough policing
of it. And really, one of the issues with it occurring in India is that really it should be so the Indian call centres, and don't get me wrong, they're not the only ones, but they're the major ones. They are going to the UK because of the English-speaking stuff. Obviously, UK, US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. That's where they go. That's where they operate.
Yeah.
Now there are other groups.
That's where the money is too. Let's face it.
Groups doing similar scams, and similar sort of stuff from Eastern Europe. But essentially, the guts of this comes from India. And really, what we say, we can do. Yeah. Lots of things like, we're not I'm not certainly capable of doing something that Browning does, where he really just turns the tables on the scammers.
Yeah. And I can see, I won't go into the technical details, but minus the way in which he turns the thing around to have the tech support application put onto the computer of the person there, the way he does things, I can see how he gets into it. You go into the router, it's got the default password in, you go in there, you find out the DHCP table, you find out the devices on the network. Like I say, this is not a tech podcast. We're not going to go into the nerdy details. But I do love looking at it and seeing the workings.
One of the responses he came up with,
shit.
And with the assistance of a group called scammerbusters.org. And this is a website, scammerbusters.org, that basically you hit that up and you can leave numbers that you've noted. I got cold called. I actually keep a record of those numbers. I block them and then I'll write them down. And you can actually drop scammerbusters.org a line. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to do this, but it means that they'll at least look at this, and if that number's come up before, or if they do, like, yes, okay. So what they'll do is basically spank these call centres with thousands and thousands of incoming calls. So it has two impacts. The first one is that it really just shuts down their ability to operate a phone system, to make outgoing calls. And the second thing it is, because these businesses, they will basically run their telecommunications through a router somewhere, and that will spread out. So that's where they have their 0434 numbers or their 07 Queensland numbers. They'll run that through a telco, where the source, where they are, is a 1300 number. So if they're getting spanked with incoming calls, they're getting charged for each and every one of them. And there's a magnificent moment on Jim Browning video where he is watching these scammers ring up a telco and complain about their bill, and because they've been hit by scammer busters who make literally thousands of incoming calls. And there's also a video of Browning seeing these guys go into absolutely sort of apoplectic rage when these big scammer busters calls come in, and they're able to robotically create a conversation that sits alongside the scammer's sales spiels. So it's really, really funny to watch when it happens, because what's going on? The phones are just ringing everywhere, and it's absolutely mad, and it's costing them money. So scammerbusters.org. I mean, what we're finding is, our federal police don't have jurisdiction.
No.
Yeah. And
Interpol are toothless.
Look, if you're like me, you're getting 3 or 4 calls.
Despite
it's at least 5 minutes of your time. At that rate alone, these fuckers should be shut down, right? And it's easy enough to do. I mean, basically, Modi, India's leader, Scott Morrison was there zooming or on some sort of cam conference where he's whipping up a curry for Modi. I mean, if they're getting on that well, what Scott Morrison should be doing, I'm not saying this is just, entirely his job, but basically Australian trade with India is expanding. There's a lot of encouragement around that place. One thing that Australian DFAT officials, our politicians, including Morrison at the absolute senior level with Modi, should be saying, listen, we love you guys, but this shit needs to stop. Crack it down. And Modi, he loves a crackdown.
Yeah.
He loves a crackdown, and I reckon any excuse, he'll just, have the boys in there waiting around with those long leather straps they carry to belt people around the head with. So while they make violent arrests. So that's something that really can be done. We can talk about, people like Browning and scammerbusters.org, but really it's at that top level that says if you act on this, it will, basically crack down on it, make some arrests.
People need to go to jail. People
do. The people who are actually making the calls, it must be said, earn very little money.
Yeah, I'm not up there.
But the people who run it almost like sort of pyramid scheme the ones who own these organisations, they are living large, millionaire.
And they're often organised criminals. They're not just like random fucking tech nerds. These guys, and I've seen from like the Reply All podcast where they went over there and that sort of stuff. They use intimidation. They beat people who get out of line. At the end of the day, a lot of the people who are making the phone calls often don't even get paid their commissions. They'll just get churned. It depends on a lot of the things, but this is something that is run by criminals for criminals, and it doesn't come off that way. But at the end of the day, these are not good people.
These are not very nice people who will take you to the cleaners and do anything. To successfully do that.
Very, very cruel.
That. Yes.
Yeah. We can't dwell on this all day. For starters, I need to call my bank and get a freeze on my accounts because I just took a call on the other line and sent him my tax file number, net bank password.
Sorry, what are your bank?
I'm sorry.
Your bank details?
I've got them here somewhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Fuck you. But we need to look at a different kind of scammer now. We need to move on. One that has the decency to spare the elderly and vulnerable in society and limit the grift to just kids with cancer. It's a much more noble mark. It's our least favourite son, Eric Trump. He's like a bastard on Father's Day.
Terrific Eric Trump news this week, Joe. In what was described as a bizarre interview on Fox and Friends, Eric Trump, the good-looking boy, blamed the Texas grid meltdown on Joe Biden's policies, despite the fact the GOP have been in power in the state for the last 25 years, and Texas is the only state with a grid that doesn't hook up with the rest of the country. Therefore, when it goes into meltdown, it can't pull surplus electricity out of other grids. And the Federal Energy Commission, all the way back in 2011, had pointed this out.
Just to see.
And despite of all of these things, and the fact, I suppose, that Joe Biden has only been president for a month, despite all that, Eric Trump laid the blame for the Texas grid meltdown at the feet. Look, he has a point there, but if he brushes his hair the right way, people don't need to see it. Look, Eric has always been fascinated with electricity. After that time, he stuck a fork in the PowerPoint at Trump Towers and blacked out Manhattan for 48 hours, while Eric forgot his own name for 3 weeks and would push his pants every time he turned the lights on in the bedroom. But Eric, who is a good-looking boy, the idiot savant of the Trump family who still can't do long division, no matter how many times he remembers to carry the one, went on to claim that 75 to 80 million Americans would, and I quote, walk to the ends of the earth for his dad. Love you, Dad! Now, it's important to remember that most Trumpers can barely make it to their letterboxes without suffering cardiac arrest, let alone to the ends of the earth, which Eric thinks is somewhere in Arkansas. What with the morbid obesity and the burden of carrying 3 times their own body weights in military-grade hardware. Students of electoral politics may have taken note that while Eric laid a spread of 5 million, between 75 and 80, Eric said, Joe Biden collected 81 million votes. Now, Eric, who is a good-looking boy, and by the way, didn't the makeup girls do a wonderful job of concealing the impetigo rash he's had that pretty much covers his entire face, and the hookworms that just routinely pop out of his ears. But they did a great job, and he looked fantastic on television. But the question is, has he let the Trump cat out of the bag? The Trump cat is actually Ted Cruz, who likes to sit in Ivanka's lap, and Donnie Jr. feeds him out of the trash at Mar-a-Lago, where he's been, if he's been a good boy, that is. But I digress, Joel. Is Eric the first Trump to concede that the old man, the Great Orange One, actually lost the popular election by a whopping 6 million votes, which is the actual count, by the way? It was a bold move by Eric.
If you believe
Eric
the
got
count.
back, he told the Great Orange One it was an honest mistake. But that didn't stop the family patriarch beating Eric around the head and shoulders with a 4-iron. And with every blow, every crack of that golf club, Eric would cower, weep, and whimper. Well, we all know what he'd whimper. Oh, I love you, Dad. And we'll be back next week to report on the catastrophic physical and psychological injuries Eric has sustained. But right now, we must turn our minds to the most exciting change in Australian politics since Harold Holt asked, can someone get me a fucking towel? It's the week in Senator. That's right, he's a senator. Well, almost a senator. He's been invited.
He's been
it's
invited.
It's the week in the Right Honourable Pete Evans.
It has, as usual, been a pretty big week in Pete Evans. Not as big as last week.
Still big.
That was a big week. That was one of the biggest weeks Pete Evans has had. See, leading the week is a very important moment for us. Pete took a screening of Jack's latest in The Australian and posted it to his Telegram
I hope he's
chat.
a subscriber.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Actually, I think he
looks like it.
I'm not sure. But look, let's face it. We're only doing this to get his attention. And that's all we ever wanted. All I wanted from this segment is a packet of signed beef mince from the cult leader himself. But Jack's got me nod this week. I'm always, bridesmaid, never the bride. Bunch of bullshit. I fucking rally against that cocksucker. And Pete said in regard to the article link, he said, and I quote, I smell fear and panic from the show that is the MSM.
The media.
Do you also? Who owns The Australian? Join the dots. So it looks like Jack's a part of the media and taking orders from up top. Jack, do you feel like addressing this, or are you lost for words without Rupert telling you what to say? Would you like me to email you some talking points like Roger Ailes used to do in Fox News? Do you need some help, Bubba?
I don't get any talking points, Joel. I mean, basically, when I sit down and write a column,
bullshit.
I have no instructions and no direction on emphasis or anything like that.
That's what you would say, though. That's what you would say.
I know.
You fucking liar.
Look, that's the whole point. I'll be having a crack at Pete Evans whenever it suits me. Whenever he's stuck his head up above the parapet and gobbed off, I will have a go at him every single time. And tough shit if you don't like it, Pete. I have very many readers read my stuff every week, and that's a bit of a blow for you because you have a lot less. I think you've lost about 1.8 million dedicated followers. Yeah. Well, there'd be some crossover between
used to be cool.
Instagram and Facebook. How many Telegram followers has he got now?
He's just 30, on 30,000. Yeah, it's not bad. Look, I wouldn't say no to it. I'd love to have a platform that big to poison the minds of 30,000 people with complete misinformation and bullshit, cause them to be paranoid, delusional messes that their family don't want to talk to. That'd be great. That's my idea of a good Sunday. Bat and some golf.
Yeah, well, plenty of golf. Yeah.
So, and moving on, listeners of the show might remember that Pete's first speech got the biggest reaction when he brought up the media that you are taking your fucking cues from, because I know that everything you just said was what Rupert told you to say, you fucking robot, and how bad they are, of course. Now, but he's had a bit of time to think it over, and maybe has been a little bit harsh on them.
That media, you see.
He's going to need that media because he's been stripped of all his mainstream platforms. He's got no Facebook, no Instagram. He's got fucking Telegram, which is just pilled gronks. He may as well do a soapbox speech in Mullumbimby. So he's never learned how to use Twitter, which is a fucking relief. But I must say, I would have enjoyed watching him get banned.
He wouldn't survive on Twitter.
No, he really wouldn't. And to be honest, I find the place confusing. I do so many tweets to like no audience. It's really sad. It's one of the saddest platforms ever.
He'd just get belted day in, day out.
No, he would. But he'd just block everyone who didn't agree with him because he's a free speech warrior.
He'd end up shouting at walls, I want to say. Soapbox in Mullumbimby.
Yeah, pretty much. So he's come out in Telegram with an appeal to the media to come give him some attention. The issue is that while Pete has an almost zero chance of getting up in the Senate, it becomes a genuine long shot if the media aren't giving him a platform, which is what he's now realized. Yeah. Maybe one of his friends who knows something about politics has the answers and told him this isn't going to fucking work. So in a fairly pathetic Telegram post, I really enjoyed reading this. He pleads, and I quote, 9 months ago, I was invited to speak on the 60 Minutes program about COVID and conspiracy theories. And then he goes on to say, I would be very happy to sit down for another interview with them or another news outlet anytime for a bit of an update. Oh, Petey! Petey. So you want to kiss and make up to the media now? You've got a fucking Senate bid you're trying to prop up. What a bunch of shit. I fucking say absolutely giving his wish. As much as I don't believe in platforming lunatics, I must say watching them get eviscerated by a bunch of piranhas is way more satisfying. Let's get him on the 7:30 report. Let's get Lee Sales in there
is not a piranha,
with a briefing of
I just want to stop you. Lee Sales is absolutely deeply lovely human being.
Dude, this is
and a very good friend of mine.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, she would be answering asking a lot of questions.
She would destroy him.
Well, you would love to see it.
Oh,
you
my
would pay
God.
money to see it.
No, I'm not. Nothing against piranhas. Piranhas have their role. Believe me, I love a good hard interviewer. They are essential to Australian politics, especially when it comes to Pete Evans being fucking torn apart in a town square. So how he possibly thinks that would go for him. Oh, please media, please interview me.
Put me on again.
Are you fucking kidding? The second that any journo does a job on him, he's just going to fall to bits. So she will just destroy him with questions about his absolutely terrible public record of saying abhorrent and stupid things, transphobic, Nazi shit, the whole bit. And he'll turn around and talk about, oh, the media are bad. You fucking asked for them to invite you on, you penis. It would make such a cracking week in Pete Evans. If he was crying on television, it would be such a big week in Pete Evans. But it's unlikely because appealing to the media, I'm just shitting on them as a concept, not even in like a specific sense, but just as a concept, is likely to fall on deaf ears. I mean, sure, you get views, but the ABC doesn't run on advertising. They do things for public interest, and he is not in the fucking public interest. People do love a freak show, but at the end of the day, this Senate bid is just a really shitty idea, and you're not going to get much traction on the airways, champion. Maybe Kyle and Jackie O will take you back on because Kyle is clearly pilled. Otherwise, the world of Pete Evans just keeps spinning. He regularly posts fake news articles to the wild adulation of a series of loyal idiots who believe anything they read from outlets like fucking News Punch or Natural Health News. Still blabbing about electoral fraud and the stolen election because, of course, he fucking is. I mean, like, he doesn't really know much about anything else. And one of the things that's really funny is that he's hyping up CPAC because in this parallel universe we live in, people who are into wellness and health are also supporting the US Republican Party. World. It's so weird. How that works is, I think we should probably cover another episode.
Well, and you have been listening to the Conditional Release program with your host, Jack the Insider and Joel Hill. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you've enjoyed our bullshit, throw us a 5-star review on your podcast app.
Jack can be found on Twitter on @JackTheInsider and Joel on @CrunchyMoses with a K. We've set up a Facebook page and now a group called the Conditional Release Program Shitposting Group.
I wasn't sure whether I should join it or not. I'm still on the fence.
Yes. Well, to be fair, it might be controversial content, so watch yourself, sunshine. You know, Rupert Murdoch's not going to let you off the hook so easily with your robotic life. But also, just again, we do this every week. Promoting a podcast sucks. It's really difficult. Getting people on board, they tend to stay on board when we get them, but hearts and minds. You've got to win hearts and minds. It's just like the Iraq War, except way less civilian casualties. Anyway, I digress. Please share our podcast.
Please share our episodes. Don't make us go into the vicious world of creating psyops to create a legion of millions that will do anything that we say. Please don't make us do that.
Don't make us so desperate for an audience that we turn this into a fucking red-pilled nightmare and destroy your auntie's minds, because trust me, we will. We are one fucking week away from going full Pizzagate.
Finally, all feedback, tips and death threats should be sent to the Conditional Release Program @gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, even if you're calling to tell us our NBN is fucked, you want to access our computers and empty our bank accounts. Thank you, listeners. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, listeners. See you then. Share our shit.